Heart of Wax, Chapter 1, The Inn of Nowhere Interesting. I am the sun. I am the life of sand and sky. I am the Princess Kareen. So, while I sat here pushing around the contents of my plate in a grungy inn within some far-off lands, it was something I didn't want to consider. Sailing here had taken so long I didn't even know the date, the time, or even where in the lands we were. Despite the shut windows and the rugs covering the dark oak floor, it was cold. Not the nice cold of the night, not the pleasant cold of water. This cold had fangs. It dug into my skin like a viper burying itself deep within my bones. It was almost as bad as the crowding of my surroundings, clutter pressing in from all sides, with benches lining large tables and a bar that jutted out in an ugly, dark stone. I stuck out like a pearl in pebbles. They were pale, the opposite to my warm, dark skin. Their hair tied tight to their heads. Nothing like me and my curled black hair. I let hang with freedom and comfort. Their clothing was layered and thick, slow, bulky and bland compared to my silk gown of iridescent blue. I felt out of place as I moved my potato around my plate. Suffocated, forgotten, alone. Eat, that male voice said again. It was all he had said for the past hour, the voice I had learnt as friend now grating on my spine. Varian, the Cathedral warrior, my protector. The royal pain up my ass, more like it. Though I'm sure if I said that out loud, he would probably fill that role in the more physical sense. Cathedrals. Brutish, self-important cats that, God's curses, somehow wound up with thumbs. I felt his hand on my shoulder, the thick white fur soft and comforting, nudging for my attention. Eat, he growled again, and again I ignored him. I felt the soft hand move to my other shoulder, reaching down my arm and grasping my wrist with a caring softness, his claws not even denting my skin. I felt his other arm hold me around my waist so I could not move, his mane of ivory white tickling my ear as he rested his head on my shoulder, a low purr rumbling from his chest. I did not need comforting or coddling, but he was trying, so I would as well. I did not resist as he guided my hand, fork in toe, to my mouth. Did not resist as he nudged my cheek, my mouth opening. Did not resist as I bit down, chewed, and swallowed. It tastes vile, unseasoned and simple, I grumbled, not caring that the other patrons of the inn could hear me. I winced as I felt Varian's roaring laugh. It is a potato, your highness, he chuckled, grinning at me as he let go of me and sat up. It is meant to fill your gut and keep you warm, not taste of overpriced herbs and spices. No, potatoes are cheap, easy and simple. Varian smiled at me with a carefree, toothy smile. I did not care for his reaction. Potatoes are bland, boring. Kareen, you could at least smile back. Places like this can't afford the flavors you like. I hated when he schooled me. Look, I will go see if they have some salt. Just wait here like the good delicate little flower you are and let me find some. I flipped him a vulgar gesture as he left. I spent my time staring at my plate, so engrossed in not thinking about how sticky with ale the table was that it took me by surprise when I looked up to see someone sitting in Varian's seat. That spot is taken. My voice was firm and commanding, a voice I had perfected over the years. The short figure, cloaked in what looked to be turquoise satin, turned to look at me. I could not see much under their hood, could not hear much over the racket of drunken patrons, could not smell much over the sense of alcohol and vomit. However, despite my cluttered senses, I felt a wave of calm in the air between us, the taste of wildflowers and honey clogging the back of my throat. The feel of pure vernal magic wrapping around me like a blanket was almost overwhelming. That spot is taken. Find another table. My friend's coming. They asked me to reserve seats. A soft, young voice sounded from below the hood. They will be here soon. You can eat with us if you like. It was as if they hadn't heard me, or they were too entitled to acknowledge it. Either way, I would not be ignored. I was about to tell them to leave when Varian's voice echoed in my head. Don't cause trouble. Don't pick fights. Stay passive and timid. You are a guest in these lands, and while I am strong, I don't nearly have enough friends to take on a kingdom. He drilled that into me on the voyage over so much I could still hear it in my sleep. Why, I didn't understand. He was one of the best fighters my kingdom had to offer. But he was from these lands and, though I'd hate to admit it to myself, the damn cat is usually right when it comes to tactical strength. So I didn't cause trouble as I returned to pushing around the plate of unseasoned food. It was a female voice that dragged me out of my brooding, a gruff but friendly voice. Forgive our friend. We asked them to reserve a seat, not steal one. Honestly, nymphs and their manners. She hummed, sitting across from me. A dwarf with rosy cheeks, neatly plaited red hair, and blue eyes smiled up at me. Don't mind us. Name's Sonara. Southern mine. That there's Alda. She indicated to the short, hooded figure. We have two others with us, but they're outside. I didn't want this conversation. She was smiling as much as Varian did. I didn't want to entertain this, but I nodded, smiled a well-practiced smile, and returned to my food. Friendly. That was the word Varian used to describe these lands, where everyone knew everyone, or at least pretended to. Kareen. I spoke softly, balanced, the picture of control. This was my conversation, my table. A pleasure, then. Sonara's cheery voice rang through my ears, my voice lost to the din of the inn. You said the seat little Alda is in is taken. Who are you with, lass? I scanned the inn, looking for Varian. Nowhere. Oh, just a friend. A friend who had dragged me to the arse end of nowhere and expected me to smile about it. He went to fetch some salt, and was taking his sweet time about it. We sat in uncomfortable silence, or at least I tried to. My two acquaintances were chattering away. No, only the dwarf, Sonara, was. The hooded figure, the nymph Alda, was silent. I wonder if they had even talked in the first place, or if I had just imagined it. Varian returned shortly after, carrying a small dish of salt carefully between his large claws. He did not sit, instead eyeing the others carefully. Company? Something in his voice felt off, uncertain. In a land where everyone was supposedly friends, it dawned on me. He carried more weapons than usual. Friends, Nymph of Forest and Dwarf of South, Alda hummed under their hood. Orc of Plains and Night of Snow are outside. I could feel the air relax as Varian smiled. Ah, our escorts, he chuckled. Forgive me for the confusion. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. Escorts. I wouldn't put it past him to hire some, but this soon? You could have waited a week or so. I muttered to him, disdain in my voice. And what do you mean, our? I do not do that sort of thing. Escort has another meaning in these lands, Princess. I requested we have a couple guards and helping hands while we're here. The various peoples obliged, all ready to impress the royalty from overseas. He patted my back, Snarra laughing at my confusion. It was embarrassing. Varian exchanged names and titles with the other two as I returned to my at least now salted food. He seemed to trust them at a glance. A cat's instincts are never wrong, I remember him telling me. Lies. His first assumption was they were a threat, or he wouldn't have approached them from behind. No, these were allies. I would have to ask him what calmed him later. The nymph left the table at some point, only to return a few minutes later, guiding two figures. One, a tall, dark ash purple-skinned orc, paintings of blacks and rich reds decorating her. She looked fit to rip out a spine, or at least crush a Cathiel's skull. She was in tight-fitted fighting leathers, with two axes strapped to her back, in similar design to Varian's great axe. Her leathers were lined with brightly coloured feathers from beasts I had never seen. Her hair tied back with a loose strip of leather. Pure black, not the warm black of mine, but a cold black. Hair that was seen only as an inconvenience, not a beauty. Her voice of gravel sent a tingle down my spine as she introduced herself, Ravenna. The glance of dislike she gave me did not go unnoticed by Varian, who growled quietly. The glance of care she afforded Snarra did not go unnoticed either. But it was not the orc that sent fear rocketing through me. It was the knight beside her leaning casually on a support beam. I had not seen them arrive. Their armour was of deep carved steel, the greatsword on their back cold and simple. I could not see their face, not below the helmet that engulfed them. I could not see any skin at all, just armour and plate and black leather. Night of snow, the nymph had said. I found myself agreeing with them. The air around the night was cold and still, not like the soft spring I had felt from the nymph earlier, not like the biting cold of the winds outside, but a stillness that seeped from graves and time, a cold that came from experience. The fear I felt was primal, biting, and I found myself retracting closer to Varian as every bone in my body screamed to run. Only to see Varian dash up to the knight and give them a warm hug of old friends. Melly, you bastard, stop skulking in the corner. Come sit, I'm sure I can find you something you can eat. Sorry, bit out of it tonight. I haven't had anything in days. Her voice echoed from under the helmet. I felt every joint relax and each muscle rest. Friend. Her voice was that of a friend. Soft, warm and kind. Simply kind. The sort of gentle kind that wrapped me up in a blanket of safety. Though I will admit I was a little hurt when you didn't request me for this little visit. You know I will make time for you wherever, you lump of fluff. Not just old friends, but lasting ones. How Varian maintained such friendships was beyond me. He hadn't left my lands since I was a child. Forgive me, I simply assumed you would want to remain neutral in all this. Varian muttered. He was being secretive again until he turned to me. Melly is a member of an order that likes to remain neutral, and helping you may show favoritism. No secret then, but caution. Another subject to add to my list of interrogations tonight. I did not engage in the talking. I didn't want to. The travel, the foreign things, the people that all acted as though they didn't have hidden blades. It was a lot. So when Varian suggested we all headed up to bed, I nodded along. Sleep sounded perfect right now. It was Melly that paid. How many rooms am I getting? Or can we just settle with beds? The notion of sleeping in a room of 20 other people did not sound or smell ideal. Privacy was what I needed, though I doubt that would ever happen with Varian on guard duty. The princess will have a room, Varian chimed in, and, as if his word were law, they all simply nodded.